to New American Youth Ballet Presents. I am honored to have David LaMarche, the conductor of the American Ballet Theater Orchestra at the Metropolitan Opera House, with us today. And this is actually our second time together to be able to talk with you about your work. And we're so grateful to have you today and just to see how everything's going and your advice for musicians. So thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure. Thanks for inviting me. Yeah, the last time we saw each other, the last time we filmed was when you came to the Met Opera, and I
think it was Swan Lake back maybe 3 years ago, I might want to say.
Yeah.
The summer season at the Met, it was beautiful, and you showed us around.
Yeah, your mother came and your son was there too. I remember. Yeah.
Well, we can't wait to get back there, and I'm sure you and your amazing orchestra
the musicians go in to play. They play. That's where we call it the pit. That's where they play the orchestra, right? Yeah. They enter from both sides, this side and the other side too.
You have to stand at something?
Yeah, stand on a it's a big podium. Podium. Yeah, and that's what I stand on to make me higher so we can see me. Right?
Can we look inside?
Go ahead. Back here is where all the percussion players play, xylophone, triangle, you heard some this afternoon, tambourine.
What do you think is the biggest instrument in the Haunted Orchestra?
The biggest one, probably,
Like the biggest?
this one right here, bass drum. Yeah. I mean, otherwise, like, the biggest is the tuba that the brass players play. Otherwise. So they also, all the brass players play over here. The woodwind players play. See the harp in the distance there? Yeah. And then the string players all on the other side.
What about the cello?
Yeah, on the other side. Right near the harp where the harp is. That's where they all sit.
How many rehearsals does the orchestra have?
It's different for every piece. Like Swan Lake is in our repertoire every year. So actually, this year we only had one rehearsal.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because they've played it so many times, they know it really well. So we had one rehearsal that was 3 hours.
Okay.
And then we just went right into the show from there.
And was that rehearsal, of course, with the dancers or just an orchestra
That
rehearsal?
one wasn't with the dancers, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we had one in the afternoon with the dancers, but with a pianist playing the score.
I see.
Yeah.
Just to set the tempos.
Yeah, sometimes we do that. Mostly we use the orchestra for our dress rehearsals, but if it's something that's in the rep a long time,
Yes.
then we don't actually.
And all the players are consistent through the years? Do you have a lot of, like, sometimes newcomers that...
Yeah, they're consistent unless they decide to retire or
Sure.
take a year off or whatever, then we have to find somebody else.
That's a pretty amazing gig.
Oh yeah, that's a great gig. I mean, this 8 weeks it's actually grueling too, but I mean, it's, because you have one ballet, then the next one, and the next one. We rehearse the next one coming up in the week that we're performing one and all that, so it's,
And why do you think Swan Lake is like everybody's ultimate ballet? Why is this the one that's the big one?
I think it's a combination of a lot of things. I think it's a great story. It's very dramatic. The music is fantastic. Music is familiar to most people.
Yes.
And the dance, I mean, the choreography is great.
Right, right.
The second act and the Black Swan and all that stuff. People, it's so iconic now.
Yes.
Everybody knows it,
And what's the most challenging ballet to conduct?
Well, see, it depends. Like, we have different ways of being challenged. I mean, musically, there are some that are very difficult, like Romeo and Juliet, Prokofiev's Romeo and Juliet. The music is hard. But then there are some where it's harder for the conductor because of all different changes in tempo, something like Giselle or La Bayadere or something like that.
Those are my two favorite ballets.
Oh my God, really? Wow. See, I'll be conducting you someday.
Is it like the part with the snake?
Yeah.
And then she dies.
That's everybody's favorite part.
That's her favorite part.
How do you conduct?
Well,
Because I had a conducting stick before birth.
That was your
One
dream
time-
to get, your dream gift.
One time I had one for Christmas and then I put it in my sleeve and so I sat on it and I broke it.
You broke it. Yeah, I've broken a few too. Actually,
We rehearsed for this interview. That wasn't part of it.
Also, the dog chewed the
Okay,
one
guys.
part.
That's going on
Can we
TV.
stand point, What was the last piece what was the last concert or the last program that the orchestra was together before all this happened?
And the very last performances we did before everything shut down was in California. We were on tour in Orange County, California, and we premiered a new ballet by Radmansky called Of Love and Rage. Fantastic piece
music by Khachaturian, great score. And we did those, and then we came back to New York, and then I had some concerts with Orchestra of St. Luke's, some children's concerts, and that was it. Everything just shut down.
I know.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I'm grateful to hear about some of the exciting works that you're doing for musicians to learn how to accompany dancers. Can you just tell me a little bit more about that program and how people can find out about that?
Yeah, sure. So I thought that it's interesting because, like, in the last 5 or 6 years, when ABT has had to audition for a new rehearsal pianist, right? Because we have a staff of 5 different rehearsal pianists, and sometimes people leave or whatever. And so whenever we have an audition, we get a lot of pianists who are from conservatories, who are great, great musicians, but they have had no experience with dancers. So I thought it would be a good idea to do like an introductory course. My course only lasts for 3 sessions, and I give a lecture. And then what I do is I assign ballet repertoire, like the famous pas de deux, like from Swan Lake and Romeo and Juliet and all that. I assign these to the pianists at the conservatory, and they learn it, and then I coach them on it. And that in that way, they learn musically about the ballets, and also I give them video clips of the ballets so they can relate the music to the visual and see how that all works too. You know, so it's like my introductory course. Yeah.
Because I mean, I'm sure many dance teachers can relate. Sometimes, you know, when you need a recording, you'll get it and the tempos are insane. And you think, how can you possibly, you know, do 32 fouettes to that tempo, or it sounds like a circus, or, you know, and it's completely off the wall with the tempo, because I guess they don't know. And that's what you're educating a whole new generation, which is so important.
Yeah, well, these the groups that I was targeting this course to are in a conservatory program like Juilliard.
Yes.
And in each conservatory program, they have a special program called collaborative piano, and these people are more geared towards collaboration, whether it would be a singer or an instrumentalist and dancer. So I think it's good to introduce them to, because most musicians don't know anything about dancers, what they need, or, you know, how it all works together and everything. So I try to give them a very basic, you know, introduction to all of that. Yeah.
Have you ever met any dancers turned like in the direction of conducting? Has that ever been something that you've seen? I know Nuria,
you know, that's
didn't he? Didn't Nuria?
He did. Nuria
conducting.
Yeah, Nureyev conducted. I wasn't there, but I know Nureyev conducted Romeo and Juliet for ABT. He really, you know, was one of his dreams to do that. And he was able to accomplish that, which was great.
And that's a monster score to conduct.
Oh my God, yeah. And you know what else? I have a friend who's the music director of National Ballet of Canada. David is his name. And last year they hired a woman who used to be a principal dancer in a European company. I'm sorry, I've forgotten which one. She was a principal dancer, and she made a transition into conducting. So now she's conducting at National Ballet of Canada. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So my first question is, what was your schedule like before the pandemic, and then how has it changed now?
Right. Well, before the pandemic, you know, I was always really, really busy because ABT rehearses all the time. And we had lots of performances. And besides doing ABT, I do a lot of guest conducting for other companies. So in the fall of 2019, before the pandemic started, I was working for ABT. We went out to Orange County to do Nutcracker. I came back, then I went to San Francisco to conduct Cinderella in San Francisco Ballet. And then I came back, and then ABT went to Orange County again to do this Radmansky Ballet. And then I came back and did some educational concerts with Paul Taylor's second company and Orchestra of St. Luke's. And that's my typical schedule, you know? And now it looks like we're finally getting to the point where we can see the light at the end of the tunnel. oh, maybe in the fall there'll be some performances if everything goes okay and all that. So we've all got our fingers crossed for that.
With virtual concerts and rehearsals, how do you handle the delay on Zoom? Because I know it's like 1 second of a delay.
Yeah, well, I've talked to one thing is I've talked to my friends who play for ballet classes like on Zoom, because a lot of dance studios now are doing remote, like your mother is. And when it's remote like that, the pianist usually is in one space, like the pianist is in his or her home, and the teacher is in another space, and so there is a lag. And they were just saying, people have to get used to it. It's unusual, but it's a little confusing. But what they say is that the teacher probably doesn't talk as much because it's hard for the teacher to talk and have the lag behind the piano and everything. So that's one thing. But for like orchestras, what orchestras have been doing is they've been pre-recording. Like each player pre-records his or her part, right? And then they take a sound engineer, and that sound engineer puts it all together. And so there's no lag because he's able to make it work. Yeah.
Do you have any advice for music students who only study online?
Wow, yeah. That's a hard one because I think studying online is more difficult. I would say, well, if they're still studying with a regular teacher, that's a good thing, right? I think it's probably hard to start fresh lessons, with a new teacher under this situation right now. But with their old teachers, I think that's okay. It's not ideal, but it's okay. I would just say, practically speaking, depending on what instrument you play, like if you play piano, make sure the camera is set up in such a way that the teacher can see the keyboard, so that when you play, you can see the hands and everything like that. And from what I've heard, they've improved Zoom so that now there's less of a lag. So, try to get the most up-to-date version of Zoom or whatever. And that's basically all I can say, and keep practicing as much as you always did.
My last question is, do you have any pets?
I don't have any. I love dogs, by the way. I like cats too, but I love dogs. No, I don't have any pets. I wish I had thought what I do have. And not a real pet, but a fake pet. It's a penguin. Did you see it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any pets?
Yeah, we have 4. We have Sarah, who's my brother's dog, and then Panyo, who is my beta fish. He's a male. And then we have a guinea pig, a male guinea pig, and a male rabbit. So they're brothers.
Oh my,
Really?
that's amazing. The waltz is like, even though they're in 3, they're usually fast. A fast waltz, they say it's in 1 because instead of doing 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, it's more like a round gesture, right? So like if you were doing like like here, da 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 dee da dum dee dee da dee. See, it's kind of a round gesture like this, right? Yeah. I mean, your hand keeps coming down to the same place. That's the beat, right? So it's whereas 4 is more like very strict tempo. Yeah.
And on the topic of all these rare pieces of music that have been so challenging to find, is there an official ballet library, or do you see in the future this to be like an important thing that people support or fund, just to keep, live music is so important.
Yes.
I mean, we can do a lot of things virtually, like we're doing this interview, which I appreciate Zoom for that, and virtual for that, but there's nothing like that feeling of the live instruments and people all bringing that sound and making that such a part of life. I think people need it more now than ever, don't you?
Yeah, I totally agree. It's funny, Elizabeth, because over the years, at ABT, I get calls or emails from people all the time from different companies all over the place, not just US, Europe, South America, whatever. And because the ballet repertoire, especially the 19th century repertoire and all that, it's difficult. Some of it's difficult to find, period. And some of it, you can find it, but not exactly in the version that you want. Yes. You know, that's the version. Yeah. So like I say this to people all the time, Swan Lake, if you were to go and try to rent Swan Lake from a publishing company or whatever, what they still rent out nowadays is Swan Lake music as it existed in the original production. And you might know that in the original production is not the way people do it now.
No, the order is completely different.
Exactly. You know that, of course.
Yes.
Right. But they still rent it out that way. So if you don't know anything and you get it that way, then you have to do all these corrections or whatever, and, you know, and all that stuff. So yes. I think your idea is great. I mean, you know, I'm always happy to help people find things and or even lend things out. But if there were like you said, like a some kind of centralized yes. library or something that was run by an independent organization, it would be a great service to ballet companies.
Yes, because yeah. First of all, like you're saying, it's very hard for ballet companies to get the funding they need to do full-length ballets, number one, and then to get the full-length, to get a professional orchestra or an orchestra up to playing these scores, that's another hard obstacle. But then number three, when it's just a challenge to even find the music, and if a lot of companies don't have like a knowledgeable music librarian, a lot of smaller companies, they're just kind of doing the best they can, and maybe directors like me, you read music, but you're not up to sorting that out. Sometimes when things are labeled in a foreign language, you don't know what you're looking at. It's enough of a challenge.
Yeah.
So that would, and I gotta say, how grateful I am. The first time I emailed you or approached you, I was so nervous, thinking, well, I don't know. Look at all you're doing. You're such a busy person. You're way up there, and you always took the time to answer our questions and to just be so kind about helping us find these things, which I just think is so nice in this field. Because I think everybody loves ballet and music. No matter what company or wherever you're from, I think that's maybe one thing that this terrible time has done. Like I've had a lot of different opportunities to interview people who are maybe hard to access ordinarily, but I think that this hard time has brought us together, and we can all agree that arts need to survive, and that it's good for everybody.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And that's why I try to share as much information as possible, because I think what I believe in is if the more that I'm able to help other companies or other people produce this stuff, you know, that the better it is for the art form itself, because it'll survive, you know, it'll survive more. People can get access to the music or whatever. And, you know, that's why I'm always putting it out there. And because ballet is, you know, and opera in some degree too, but ballet especially is when it originated way back when, and now it exists into the future. And some people, of course, don't see that as being relevant in the contemporary world, but it is, you know. And so that's why I keep trying to make the relations and make sure people know it's important to see these stories and hear this music still and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a culture in, I can't speak for other things, but sometimes in ballet to hoard what you have and keep it. And because you're not like that, that's why a lot of these pieces are hard to get at, because people, they obviously have done them, performed them, but they're not willing to share with other places to have access. But because you're not like that, you're releasing some of these beautiful classics into the world that it's like it's not that long of a chain as it is. And the more it's cut off, it soon will be extinct.
ABT had this program going on last summer where we actually had our musicians play either in pairs or just one person. We streamed music live into Mount Sinai Hospital, into the pediatric ward.
Oh.
Yeah. And it was a great thing. And our musicians loved it because they said, you know what, I just haven't performed for anybody in such a long time. It's great to actually sit down, even if it's over Zoom, and play for somebody, you know.
Why should people support and fund live music as opposed to saving funds and just using a recording?
You know, part of a dancer's education and part of a dancer's growth as an artist is responding to music.
Yes.
And if you have the same recording all the time, that's not going to help them grow as artists, and it's not going to help them to really vary their response and vary their expression, right? Whereas if you have live music, it's always a little bit different every time. You know, sometimes it may not be exactly what you wanted or whatever, but this is great because it actually makes you expand as an artist in the same space as you are.
Yes.
You can't replace that. You know, it's the energy that comes from the pit and everything. And so it all works together. And the audience can perceive this too. I know they can. The audience feels that and they respond to it also.
I was grateful to have Skylar Brandt on recently, and I asked her, you know, the question about live music, and she said, "You never know," how'd she put it? "You never know how that wall of sound is going to hit your heart," and I shouldn't tear up, but I miss it so much. And you mentioned music, why? Like American Ballet Theatre is one of the few companies in the world because of, you know, it's not easy to have an orchestra. It's not easy.
It's a luxury, it's a privilege.
It really is. And why, I mean, we went backstage with Maestro David LaMarche. He showed us the orchestra and everything, telling us his favorite ballets to conduct. Why is the live music such an important part of a dancer's life?
I think that, you know, live music, it makes your own performance more spontaneous. I think that also, you know,
exactly what he said.
Yep. And you never know what tempo you're going to get. You never know how that wall of sound is just going to hit your body and hit your heart. I think that, yeah, just feeling the energy from the orchestra pit, it feeds the movement, and it indicates how, at least for me, how I want to dance, how I want to approach movement, how I want to express myself. I rely so heavily on music to indicate my own movement quality. And I think that, you know, as you say, it's such a privilege to have live music.
Yes.
And it makes it fresh, and it makes it special, and it makes it different every time.
People just can't wipe out the importance of this. You know, it really is so important. And I always would tell parents who would question me when I would be pushing for fundraising for music for bigger productions, you know, why don't you just do it with a recording? And I asked them, do your children take music lessons? Yes. I said, well, then let's support what it is. Where's the?
That's what it is.
Obviously, if everybody knows it's important for your children to take piano or any instrument as a child, because it develops so many good things. So why not take it all the way? How can people support ABT? How can people support the orchestra right now? Is there a particular way they can go on and make a donation?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking. That's really kind. ABT, if you go to the ABT website, the official website, there will be something right on the first page, on the home page, that will say something, you know, something about fundraising, donate to ABT or something like that. And that's very easy. You just go right there and they'll have something that you can do. As far as musicians go, I think that there is a fund in New York anyway, that it's called Local 802, American Federation of Musicians, 802. And if you go to their homepage on their website, there's a lot of money being raised to support musicians right now too. So that's probably one way to do that.
That's interesting to check out both those links.
Yeah. And
in the future, what does next fall, are there any plans for like what the comeback concert might be? Is that still the discussion phase, or?
Yeah, I mean, you know, just like everybody else in this world right now, we're making plans. You know, for instance, like we actually have on our schedule right now performances at Lincoln Center in the fall. But of course, everything depends on what happens with the vaccinations and the virus and all this stuff, and with Lincoln Center, we don't know, but we've got it on the schedule. So they've talked about certain things, but no definite programs yet for the fall. But that's and then we're hoping to go back and do Nutcracker in December in California too. So yeah.
That would be a great thing to think about.
That would be great, wouldn't it?
Yes, we need it. Well, thank you so much to Maestro David LaMarche for joining us today on New American Youth Ballet Presents. Please check out ABT's website and the local 802 Musicians Union as ways to support musicians, because we need it more now than ever, live music. So as soon as this lifts, I hope we're all back in the concert, and I hope we see you backstage at the Met again.
Oh yeah, definitely. You're always welcome to come as my guest. So yeah.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest of the day.
What was the first piece you ever conducted?
I'll tell you. So the first company that I worked for in New York was Dance Theater of Harlem. And that was in 1983. And I first conducted a couple of years after I joined the company. And the first piece I ever conducted was a Balanchine ballet called Square Dance with music by Vivaldi. That was in Minnesota.
Wow.
We were on tour. It was the first one I ever conducted.
Was it also hard?
Was it hard? It was okay. Not hard, really, because it was pretty straightforward,
Were you nervous?
Yeah, I was nervous. My first time.
What is your favorite part about being a conductor?
My favorite part is in the show, there are moments in the show when you feel really connected with the musicians, right? And the dancers, and you feel like it's all sort of working, right? Like this chain of energy or something. And that's my favorite moment.
Everybody's working together.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and you really feel it connected.
Special thanks to Maestro David LaMarche for educating us in the importance of live music and keeping rare ballet scores alive. Our original visit was an official selection of the People's Public Media Award of Excellence. Thanks so much, and see you next week on Manhattan Neighborhood Network, Channel 2 at 4 p.m.